Welcome to today's episode of the Social Connection podcast. Today we have Kiki Baur, who is the director of Nine Designs, which is a branding and design agency and was founded in 2017. Myself and Kiki have kind of DM'd each other. I think we started similar times and I just liked each other's vibe. And I thought about a month ago, I said, right, can you come on? So Kiki, thank you very much for jumping on our podcast.
You're very welcome, man. It's a pleasure to be here. As I was saying to you, I've been seeing a lot of your stuff on TikTok and Reels, so you're doing the right stuff, which is good because you're popping up on my feed, and it's good, man. I think having a podcast like this as well, especially within this sort of industry, it's very popular. A lot of people learn a lot from it, but also it's just so much more. It's so much more authentic coming from people that are not necessarily like the biggest companies and biggest brands in the world, and a lot of them do that at the moment. So this is really, really super to see you doing this, man. So I appreciate you reaching out to me. So I'm looking forward to this. No worries.
And just to get on that, the reason why we're doing it, because there's so much corporate stuff out there, and us small micro businesses are only talking to each other in the old-fashioned business network events, but there's no kind of me time for self-learning. And the more episodes we're pushing out, the better responses we're getting. So 100% with you on that.
Exactly.
So, before we start the recent podcast, we do a quick fire questions, and it's quick fire, and there's 5 of them. So I'll start with the first one. Which country would you live in if you weren't in the UK?
Italy.
What is your main hobby?
Football, watching and playing sometimes.
What's the last thing you watched on Netflix?
Most probably Money Heist.
All right, cool. And what's your favorite clothing brand?
Favorite clothing brand? Rapa Nui for t-shirts, sustainable, and Veja for trainers.
Oh, nice. You seem to know your thing then.
Yeah.
And finally, your least favorite food cuisine.
Oh, least favorite. Mexican.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. So now we've painted a picture of what Kiki's. Can you explain to our listeners of what you're all about, and just to give us a bit of guidance on your actual agency?
Sure, sounds good. So, hi, my name is Kiki, as Atish has given me a very good introduction. So, me personally, I'm a brand strategist and designer. I've been a designer for a longer period of my life, however, strategist for the last 3 to 4 years now. And essentially, my agency is focused primarily now on branding and design. So brand strategy and identity design are the 2 main things that we do and offer our clients. We did used to be a sort of fully, I wouldn't say full stack, but a sort of fully fledged digital design agency. So we used to do elements of digital marketing as well, but we've completely stripped that down, and we focus only on strategy and design now. We do it primarily now for clients in the sort of sustainability and positive impact space. That's what we're sort of focused on and are working towards now. So everything from doing initial sort of strategy workshops, aligning brands, getting them that sort of proper clear pathway and guide into what they need to do to sort of scale up to the next level, but also working with sort of identity systems and visuals and all that kind of stuff. So that's essentially what we do, and that's what I do as well within the company.
What made, we had a conversation just before this, and you said you pivoted slightly at a different angle, because I think the reason why our fields connected was because of property and construction, and you had that. What made you change? Because the world is telling you to niche, and you went the other way.
Yeah, I went and selected a sort of. So we're still trying to find a niche, or trying to niche down into this industry now. We've sort of gone broad at the moment. But to answer your question, there was 2 reasons. The first reason is I've been in real estate or property, and more from the sort of tech side of it. And since 2014 to 2015, I was part of a prop tech startup as well. And I've seen the industry, I've seen it across, in North America and UK. And I must say, out of all the industries, it is the slowest moving in terms of tech adaptation, in terms of even like even flinging the word brand. Marketing you can get away with, but brand I think is especially, it's a very difficult sell. So what I found is right now, I'm not saying that there will never be a market, but right now the market for scaling such a sort of, agency that I was trying to grow wasn't really the best sort of business option, because what I had to do is I found myself, the biggest company we ever worked with was a California real estate management firm. And that took us 3 months to sort of, just pitch to them in terms of the idea of almost educating them on the value of a brand, and then going into, doing the actual work. Whereas, going into an industry that already values and understands that is a very different ball game.
You bypass the educational stage, right?
You bypass the educational stage, which is one of the biggest reasons, I must say. However, the secondary reason was a lot to do with just me as an individual, where my sort of lifestyle and where my personal sort of, day-to-day practices were aligned with. And although I started out in real estate, I've become much more detached from it, in the sense of I've no longer sort of in the world of investing, which I was at the very, very early stages. I'm no longer really in prop tech. The only thing I was sort of latching onto it's because I had prior experience in it. Whereas a lot of my sort of attention span was more towards positive impact, sustainability, more towards, companies that are actually trying to, whatever they're doing today, trying to do it for a sort of better future in tomorrow. And a lot of my personal stuff aligned with that. So there was a lot of these different things that sort of made that decision. It's not just one thing. There's a couple of little other things as well, but I don't really think they're worth mentioning. But those were the two sort of major. But I think the first one played a big part. It's like, it's just how, and it's not to the fault of the real estate market. I'm not saying it's a bad market to work in. I mean, it will just take a lot of money in cash, basically, to become, in my opinion, a successful brand agency in the real estate market. Not marketing, so marketing completely different, but brand agency definitely.
Yeah. So I come from that background, and you're totally 100% correct. Now, it's a very sheepish environment with, estate agency, property, commercial agents, because once the market leader does it in London, then the ripple effect comes. There's no innovators that are small micros, because they're so they're unaware and unknown, and the sources are not as great. Because when you look at America and real estate, their fees are probably 10 to 20 times more. So when the West is saying, right, this is what you got to do, and property's away, it's completely different in the UK. So I feel that, hence why we took a different direction on which type of clients we're going to be using, because the educational thing is, you roll your eyes and you think you should know this, but then again, it's part and play of that, and wasting. Probably, sometimes, most of the time, it is wasting time. I was looking at one of your posts, and it really stood out. It was about brand perception, and then you had a carousel about a watch, a bag, and can you just dive into that a bit more, because I'm really interested to know about what your take is on it, and then I can put my kind of 2 pence worth within that.
Sure. So that brand perception post that you saw, so in brand strategy, there's a module in our workshop that we work on brand perception. There's 2 parts of brand perception. There's the part which the brand wants their customers to perceive them as. So like for example, Rolex is something that's a bit more of a luxury, something that's very premium. You sort of part of a club, so to speak, or people who have Rolexes, you're sort of wise in terms of investment. So like Rolex as a brand wants you to believe these kind of things when you're purchasing their stuff, right? And then the other perception that is much more longer term to work on is what the consumer's actual perception becomes. So a good example for this was the McDonald's one, which I've thrown in, because it's very relatable for everyone, whereas Rolex might not be. But McDonald's is like, what McDonald's wants people to perceive is happy. It's like they do have healthy options. It's quick to get. We source organically and ethically, blah, 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 whatever they say about their beef and food. Our potatoes are all British. So they want you to have that perception. However, McDonald's has like the biggest split in terms of if you ask like a group of 100 people from London, some people will say it's just trash food. It's mismarketed. It's sold to, it's put in the brains of kids that might never even have had McDonald's with their family, but somehow still know about it, that it's a really good place to eat. And the other half will be like, no, it's accessible. It's very cheap. I love, everyone loves a little McDonald's here and there, etc. So perception is what really, and this is where the sort of thought process comes into it. Perception is what really sells something, as opposed to necessarily the product. I'm not saying the product is not important. It is important, but there's loads of examples of fashion brands, tech brands. I mean, Apple, for example, if you actually look at tech specifications, on average, in terms of what their capabilities are, they're around 2 to 3 years behind. If you want to get geeky about things, like in terms of what they can, there are things out there from China that are already like way, 3-4 times what the power of Apple provides. Yes, it might not be the highest sort of brand, but so we can't necessarily say the higher brands have the best products. Brands can have lower quality products. A very good example of this is also Supreme. I'm not sure if you've heard of the brand. They branded these sort of money guns and bricks and all these sort of clothes, but it was whack quality, but there was massive price tag. So the idea is that actually perception is way more than what the product or necessarily service value is, right? It's actually you, the brand itself, that can put that perception on customers depending on what you do with your positioning and marketing, etc. Now, how that becomes useful or helpful in terms of, because obviously I'm labeling out big brands here, but from us sort of micro businesses and small day-to-day brands, what we need to start thinking about is how the brand that we're trying to build, the product and services that our brand is essentially offering, or the business is offering, from a brand perspective, what do we want our clients or customers to perceive about us, right? What are those important things? And most people would lead with things like, how do I want my website to look? How do I want, even things like, how do we want to communicate? But the very first thing that we want to look at as strategists in terms of our workshops is, what do we want people to think about, and what do we want you to make people think about? So they're two very important questions. So it's diving into the sort of realm, and there's lots of debate on this. It's not that it's a proven by someone or data or whatever it is, right? It's just simply analyzing. It's analyzing consumerism, which is how us customers behave when we're purchasing things. So that was as a perfect example. I mean, this is why we buy, a lot of us buy cars and materialistic things, because actually it's got nothing to do with
how good it is, the engine is, or something like that.
Exactly. It's got nothing to do with that. It's more to do with what other people perceive of me, which comes down to one of the, sort of basic human traits of just having that respect and sort of, but that's what a lot of it is. So and that really leads to the buyer's power. The buyer's power isn't about what the product is; it's about what you make that person believe the product is, basically. So it's super powerful, and it can make you a lot of money if you do it.
If you do it correctly,
If you do it correctly.
Just to go back a couple of notches, what made you get into this industry then? How did you start off? If you can just elaborate on that, just to see where you are.
Sure.
Your journey from having your own business, what made you happen, and what's happening today?
Yeah, it's different. It's not because I've not gone down the typical route of doing brand or marketing or business in uni or anything. Actually, if anything, I skipped over uni and went straight into property investment, and it was like a complete sort of, you wouldn't think I would end up here, but there was one consistency that I had since when I was in secondary school. I was consistently designing. I was always designing things. I always had an interest for design, and that's one thing I was doing. When I got involved in a property network, I then realized that there's these hundreds of people that are saying I need a logo for my business. So I was making pocket money. I was like, okay, £100 for a logo, whatever, and everyone was saying yeah. So I had projects going on which would give me side cash money for 2-3 years. Then I got into this whole prop tech space, basically, in which I learned massive amounts of business strategies. We went to Toronto for 4 months. The company got selected to be part of an accelerator. Colliers International, which I think is the third or fourth biggest real estate company in the world, were investors in the company. So they took a share of the business, and we basically worked with their most senior and CEOs of their company. So we got very quick insights into, like, you know, the way they think, the way they do things, strategies, ideas. We got like quick mentorings and stuff done. So what happened was, in that 4 months, in a weird way, I just had this massive business boost, came back, and I said, look, to the respect of the company, did very well. It went from startup to proper business very quickly, but it became a job for me, which I didn't want to do, and I didn't sort of sign up for. I signed up for the startup side. So I left, and then I saw the most consistent thing again was design. So I kept going. That sort of kept my income coming in. I kept increasing my prices to you know, pay my bills, etc. And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was onto something. Whereas it mainly just focused on design first, and that's when I sort of built the property design agency, which is what it started out as. 9 Design started out as a niched property brand and marketing agency, and then when I started to dive deeper into, like, you know, things go way far beyond than just design and making things look good. I was studying more. I was educating myself, buying courses, getting coaching, all this kind of stuff. And my sort of knowledge went deeper and deeper into strategy and the strategy behind brands, as opposed to just, you know, building designing a logo and building a website, basically. So about 2 years ago, I'd say, I started doing my first sort of proper brand strategy process, like actually, you know, taking, and I did this with a few property companies as well, which was my way of sort of testing out the actual, because they're hard enough clients. It was like really testing out if this thing works, and it did, and it really did. So we've got this process now that's taken us like 2-3 years to sort of really hone down on, and it's still improving day to day. But that's essentially how I got there. So it's a very weird journey, like not one I would have expected myself. Yeah, because but I want to change it. Yeah,
you'd think you'd be an architect then, right? Because you're property and you like designing. So that would have been the
well, yeah, exactly. That's a good. You know, I didn't even think of that. Well, that's a good observation. Design and property, you'd go into architecture.
Definitely. Yeah. And so, how did the name 9 Designs come then?
Oh God, it's a complete. It's one thing I was thinking of changing, actually, but it's literally a complete ego name. So I was born on the 9th of February, 96. And then literally my brain was like, I've had this thing about number 9. And obviously, being football fans, I know you're a Leicester fan as well, right? The number 9, like, you know, number 9 for strikers and stuff. So it's like, you know, it's a good number. So and 96, 9 and 6 upside down is 9 and 6, basically, like, you know, whatever. So it's still a 9. So I just went with that. But now what we've done, actually, so that's how I got the name initially. But now we've actually deepened the meaning of it with the sustainability side to say, like, you know, sustainability isn't a thing that you achieve straight away. It's not like no company can be 10 out of 10, be sustainable. It's something, it's a process. So we sort of aim to get companies at 9 out of 10, right? The 9 is good enough in terms of saying that you're continuously ongoing. So you're not on 10, you're a 9, basically. So we've engraved the deeper meaning into it now, where it's not just based off of me. But yeah, so that's where it came from.
It's good to ask people, because there's a lot of personality that goes into a logo and a name.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of that. What you say is your personality is not your brand, your business brand, right? But exactly. What do we all do? We just, well, no, I don't like that. It's nothing for us, but every single person I speak to, they do it. Right.
Theory is something else and practical is something else.
Exactly. So, you know, how there's so many new clients that come on, and we talk about brand. We kind of, you know, we look to kind of take on the next step after the branding, the logo's done.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of clients that kind of say, no, I've not even done that yet. It's not for me. I don't need to do, I just need a simple logo. What could you tell these people that are stating, I don't need it? This is going out to a few property people. So if you're speaking to one of them, what would be your top tip on saying, this is where you're going wrong?
Yeah, it's quite simple, really. I think it's simple, it's nuanced, but it's also simple to understand where it comes from. So, like, just to dive a bit deep into where it obviously comes from. So, like my mentor always said to me, look, Kiki, business was always done on a golf course back in the day, right? It used to be a shake of a hand, and that's how you used to do business, right? It's so those principles essentially have led on, where it's like all these additional things, a lot of it is just relationship building in terms of how business is done. But that is where it sort of comes from, in terms of not thinking that the brand has any value, and it's just one thing of, like, this whole social media generation that value this or look at this from a way, but it's not actually something that's tangible, right?
Yeah.
However, now answering that question, what you have to look at is what you have to look at first and foremost is consumerism, right? Is how are people that are currently buying things and purchasing things, how are those patterns changing? Because it's good and well that you're catered to the current market, who might be your plus 40s, plus 50s, people that have the wealth of money at the moment, but the next generation of directors and CEOs and people that take over the company are going to have very, very different views on how they perceive businesses. And they're not going to look at businesses from business perspective. They're going to look at from brands. Now, on our day-to-day value, I'm pretty sure that you ask those people the top 5 products that they use in their bathroom, right? Most of those things are going to be based on brand, what they buy, right? There might be a certain shaving gel that they use, on a certain perfume, right? But they have these perceptions on brands, right? Because their consumerism has already started changing in terms of who they're buying from, who they're doing business with, who they're basically transacting with, right? Now, when it comes to things like property companies, this is a bit of the nuance, I think, that there could be a much later sort of delay compared to the other markets, which is why we sort of jumped out of this market. And what I mean by that is there is a massive sort of gap between where real estate companies are starting to have problems that are associated with brands. Now, I'll give you a perfect example of this. Developers, for example, Barratt Homes, Bovis Homes, a lot of developers that in and around London, right, have been known for having a lot of these sort of cladding issues and development issues, and where they've sort of been caught out charging massive premiums and prices in a market where it's already unaffordable to buy properties in and around London. So what's happening is, and I'm talking my generation, is consumers or buyers are becoming very, conscious of who they're buying from in terms of development. So I give you an example about myself and my partner. When we moved out and we bought our own flat, we were looking around at who the developers were, and who the developers are. I mean, to a point, obviously, sometimes you got no option, because there's not like there's a heck load of developers out there. Yeah. However, on the contrary to that, there are now developers that are starting to become sustainable developers, and developers that are way more conscious for the environment, from where they're sourcing their materials from, so from who they're working with, from the prices they're charging. And how does that happen? That doesn't happen by someone just going, okay, we're going to change our business model to sustainable model. It comes from brand, right? Because that whole emphasis and basis of that is through brand. So you need to start building a perception on what your business is to your customers. Whether you're an agency or whether you're a small-time developer, it's very important for whoever you're working with to understand what you stand for, right? Who do you work with? What ethics and principles do you go by? And you can't do that by just having very basic, just a logo and a website, that looks like it was made in 2012 or something, right? Yeah. So that's on a very basic level is how I would answer that. The second answer I have to that, right, is how my question is always, how serious are you taking your business and your brand, right? If you're taking your business and your brand seriously, then you will do what is needed to invest into it. So, for example, if I go to a doctor and I ask the doctor, hey, look, this is my problem, right? Can you tell me what I need, or what surgery or medicine do I need? And the doctor gives me a suggestion, say, okay, in order for you to get better and for you to improve, to get better results, you need to take X. And I go away and say, no, I think I just need this amount. So we go to an expert in terms of a doctor. We don't argue with that person. So the same thing is with brand experts or marketing experts or experts in any sort of field, right? You can't go to an artist and say, why are you charging 20,000 pounds for this art when I can buy one from down the street for 5,000? There's obviously there's expertise behind that. So that's my second part of the answer, and that's my sort of like, it's not sarcastic energy, but the energy where like if you're serious about your brand and your business, you're serious about the future of what your business and your brand is going to be. Then you would pay attention to this.
Because that fundamentally shows you there's an infrastructure there. There's an actual path that you want to go to, rather than having a reactive mode of business and then finding out later, then spending it again. And then that's when you see the people that are, we had to rebrand, and they're spending all that money again. And what's your take on corporates not wanting to kind of show much more of their employees or staff, that personal brand? Because if you're going to a London firm, you'll never see most of their stuff. It's very corporate, it's very nice, neat, all these buildings, or the Burger King showing or something like that. I kind of put the emphasis of, it depends on who your avatar, your target audience is, but everyone keeps saying people buy off people. Why shouldn't people say? What's your take on that? Why they're not putting more personality in there?
I think it's a shift that is happening where companies are forced to start doing this, and I explain why. Actually, COVID was a big spur on, a speed up to the whole old sort of workforce of like, going to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I'm not saying that it's not good for people to be in offices, because I personally feel more productive in a workspace. Same. But what I mean is that we were in a very sort of old school space in terms of having this strict like working hours and working days that people have to come in. And now it should be about flexibility. So what happened is that the conversation that opened up was about becoming more considerate, becoming people companies, right? So not only did I have work from home, but now all of a sudden after COVID, everyone's offering these sort of employee packages which are more health conscious, more mental health awareness. They have a lot of companies that I'm seeing have days for people to have like not retreats, but like at times where people might feel very stressed, they call them like sympathy days or something. So you get your holiday allowance, and you get another 5 to 6 days. For any, like it's like if you're feeling overwhelmed or something. So, and I'm not saying it's the companies aren't 100% there yet. And actually, funny enough, this ties into a lot to do with brand culture and the way brands are actually, and business and big corporates basically are essentially instilling brands into people that work for them. So they're employees. And where I see the market going in the next 5 years is the companies that sort of stagnate and stay behind with this and go very sort of old school. So no, we as soon as, and there are businesses out there that have gone back to Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I know people that work in companies like this, and they're just in a way they're literally headed by old men basically, and they're staying that way and they think that way. That's like, no, you work.
We've done it for years. It's worked all these years. Yeah. Exactly.
So there's companies that will stagnate, and what will happen? You'll just have massive lines of companies going insolvent. In my opinion, that's what what's going to happen.
Well, if you put it in the shoes of an employee, and you guys, let's say two of you are in the same field working for different companies, you're going to be saying, "Get me a job there because I'm ditching this."
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. Exactly. And it's like for employees now, it's like going to a company where you feel as if that you don't have the pain of having a sort of old school wage. And so when you have people, you have your mate, you're speaking to him, say, oh yeah, we're going on a trip to Italy next week to literally have a working week and whatever. And some companies will do that. Like I know one of my good friends that I met at a tech event, like, twice a week, they go on a week away to a like European country where it's nice and hot, and they book workspaces and stuff. They work there and they chill in the evenings. It's like company building, culture building activities. But a lot of corporates will say that. Now, there is a difference between corporates trying to do this, where they're just trying to tick the box and be the part. And there's a difference between corporates that are actually properly trying to implement this, because they are serious about this. They actually know that if we don't do this, no one's going to come for work for us. If no one works for us, then we're stuck. Simple as that. We have to. And this is and a lot of people might not like it, but like they say this is the way the youngsters work, but yeah, that is how the way the market's moving on. Like it's that old saying still goes, if you don't innovate, you die. It's as simple as that. If the majority of the market wants flexible working, regardless of whether they want sofas and bean bags and stuff, to sit on and work.
Very Google-like thing, yeah.
Yeah, and if they want that and the inspiration is out there and they get the work done, which is the most important thing, yes, fair enough. If you give all that stuff and no one gets the work done, then you do catch them sleeping. But the fact is, the data doesn't support that. The data actually supports you give people an easier life, they will actually do more for you. It's simple. If I did something really nice for you in any day, you'd feel, oh my God, like this is a really great person. I want to also just return the favor. And you will work hard for people that make you feel good. So it's as simple as that. So it's like it's human behavior, right? It's like things we feel on a day-to-day basis. So it's like, why were these not implemented like 10 years ago? So yeah, that's to answer your question, but not just in terms of like brand, in terms of corporate, but like the whole thing. I feel like COVID has, as bad as COVID was, but it's done some
a lot of advantages too.
That structure. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Otherwise, we'll still be here.
I mean, even this podcast, I would be burning some fuel going up and down London with the guests that are outside, and this is kind of, and I've said it before. This is for repurposing for me. It gives me 5 pieces of content, and we're saving time. We're all saving time, and it just works so perfectly well. What are my final questions? If a startup cannot afford a branding strategy agency, what's your top 3? What's your top 3 things that a new entrepreneur startup should think about when choosing their brand and logo?
Yeah, good question. The one thing the one thing that we're conscious of with my agency, and we don't do, is we're not focused on like, we're booking 10 calls, we want to convert 50% of them and like trying to get people on. We are actually genuinely interested in which brands can we actually build and what brands can we not tell them to go away, but like let them leave with tips or at least a sort of focus and plan. So I do this thing where I have a 30-minute free brand analysis call. We essentially jump into what your brand is, where it is at the moment, which are what I think you need to do. Now, in this case, right, now your brand, you have to be very, very careful at the start, right? Literally what we were talking about is your brand is literally at the beginning going to be based off of what your perception is, what you feel as if your brand should be, what you like and what your values are, etc., etc. Your brand 5 years down the line is going to be completely different. So my 9 designs now is completely different to what I started it out, right? We are nowhere near aligned what that 17 or 18-year-old, 19, whatever year old, wanted to start out.
That's actually a good thing because you're adapting to change. You're being more innovative. So I'm a believer in that. I've done that a few times in businesses.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. It's the greatest thing. But what I'm getting to here on that note is that at the beginning, it's not the right time for anyone. Whether they have the budget or do have the budget. If a company came to me, a startup came to me, if it's a tech start, like we don't work with tech startups because that's just not our industry. But like if a startup came to me that was within my field and said, hey, look, we got 50K, right? We want to start this thing. I would literally go away and say, first focus on your business, first and foremost, right? Get your business model right, because there's two elements of this, right? And people get this confused sometimes, their business and their brand, right? Your business, let's take a supplement company from like Vitabiotics. Their business is producing supplements, not their brand. Their brand is what the label is on the actual box, right? Because other companies are in the business of building producing supplements as well, right? What distinguishes them from everybody else is the name Vitabiotics, right? And their brand, what they built around that. So get your business right first, right? Because you can start selling, right? You can start providing and selling without having the most strongest brand, right? You could most probably hire someone that at the beginning won't cost that much money. The reason why I say this is because once you then start going into 1 year working business, 2 years of working business, right? You then start to realize, okay, I understand what my brand needs to be now, right? So imagine if I said, if that same company came to me and said, I got 50K, I said, okay, cool, let's do it. We charge 20K, like 15 to 20K for like strategy and identity design. We did that, right? So, okay, cool. They spent 20K now. let's say 30K, including a website as well, right? We've spent 30K, they got 20K left, and they must probably work with you, Metric Connect, to do their marketing, right? Okay, now they spent their 50K budget. 2 years down the line, they realize actually we want to focus on, we want to focus on a different niche. We want to focus on a different audience. And actually, not only we want to, actually, the product that we initially thought was targeted to this audience and a completely different audience is buying it. So now you're like, shit, you need to change a lot. Now, what I'm not saying here that once brand strategy is done, it's final. It can be tweaked. However, big changes happen in 2 years as opposed to once you're after 2 to 5 years. Because 2 to 5 years is more like, you're scaling up, you're doing more things, you're working with bigger clients, as opposed to you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do, right? Yeah. So that's my advice. And in a weird way, normally companies align. I don't get this problem now. The reason why is because the kind of brands that come to me have already started selling, they're already making money, they already know what their decisions are. So you will never, ever get this situation where I heard a saying, I don't know where I heard it, your bank balance is reflective of your experience and expertise. That's what your bank balance is reflective of. So the more you have money you have in a bank account, the more further down in your sort of career you are, basically. So at the beginning phases, that if we're going off of that sort of philosophy, there's a reason why it's a beginning phase. Your bank balance is low and you're at the beginning. So you need to build something of yourself first. So work with a designer that can just put you a little logo up and a website together, whatever. Don't focus way too much on the brand. Have something there for sure, enough to be able to sell. Yeah. But doing brand strategy and doing that sort of in-depth stuff comes much, much later down the line, in my opinion. So that's the way at least we take it.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, I asked this question to every guest that comes on. Cool. I'm sure a lot of people have got some, good knowledge from you about where to start, where to take it, where to be in a few years' time. But just to wrap things up, where do you see yourself personally and in business in 5 years' time?
Interesting. So I definitely think so. Okay, well, I'll split this into two: where I want to be, and then where I realistically feel we will be. So, I definitely, I'm working a lot on my personal brand, which you see it obviously on my Instagram. So I want to be known as like one of the better or good strategists within the sort of sustainability and positive impact space. I want to be known as a person that actually can get results in terms of brand strategy. And then the agency in terms of the business so that's within 2 to 5 years. I think I could get that. That's achievable from my personal side. In terms of the business side, I want that to be one of the leading design agencies within this space again. So it's quite matched in terms of what the goals are. But in terms of 9 Designs, I think it's less likely. If I'm being just because of my knowledge in the market and stuff, because of how long it will take, but also the industry is very sort of soft at the moment. It's at the beginning where there are businesses, but there's not as many like extremely profitable businesses in this sort of space. Because it's like it's finding that balance of working with companies that are not just out there for profit, but have a balance for people on the planet as well, which is more to do with diving in much deeper with the businesses. So I think because of the market, it's sort of a new market. I just don't think that's realistic for the agency side. But in terms of my personal brand, 100%, I can see that being one of the and also someone to bring a bit more entertainment into this industry. And when I say strategy, everyone takes it so seriously. Our workshops that we have are so interactive. Like they're literally like, we get people sketching, doing activities, talking into the microphone. It's not boring at all. It's like, because in order to ignite something from the brain, it's like you can't be sitting there and like, going through this sort of labor sermon, asking question process, which is what ours used to be about 2 years ago when we started out. So to be at least the more entertaining person in this industry, I feel like there's a lot of serious faces that I know in the sort of brand world. So
No, brilliant. Do you know what? Thank you so much for coming along, and it's nice to hear that you're so knowledgeable within this field, and I'm hoping people can share this and get in touch with you. So if you can let us know pretty much all your social and how they can connect with you. I'm sure people would love to have a kind of even a strategy call if need be, but just to follow you because you've got some good content.
Sure, I appreciate that a lot. Mine's quite easy, so it's Kiki Baur, Kikibhaur. On Instagram, it's on LinkedIn, it's on. I'm not really on Facebook, but TikTok as well. We're producing content on TikTok, different stuff. So follow me on those 3 profiles. You'll find that. So short and sweet and easy to find me. And I've got a yellow background, so I pop out quickly. So.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Kiki, so much for
You're welcome.
being a guest on the Social Connection podcast. If we are building this podcast, and if any of you can, listeners can help us, we would love a subscribe or a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. But keep sharing this on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever you can, and tag us in, and we'll share it. Thank you very much, Kiki, and I shall speak to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.